Hey there, this is John Lack and this is the Marketing Mercenaries podcast. So this is the very first episode of Marketing Mercenaries, and the name is a little bit tongue-in-cheek, but I kind of wanted to use that name as I feel like a bit of a gun for hire as a marketer, a digital marketer specifically. I feel like I can come into most organisations and I do pretty much the same thing. A lot of employers are very big on, you need to have worked in this industry, you need to know this industry, but when you've been doing it for a while, it doesn't take you that long to apply the same skills to a normal organisation, and you'll have to do that even if you've worked for a competitor, because every agency has its own, every company has its quirks and its nuances, and you will need to learn that as a marketer. But I really don't think that you need to have worked in a specific niche to understand it. If you've been analysing data for as long as I have, you'll realise that there's more similarities than there are differences between very different sorts of organisations. And especially I see a big... people think that there's a big gap between B2B and B2C, and there is, of course, there is nuances, but it's not that. You still need to be speaking to people, and people react to the same kinds of content, and they have the same sort of emotions. So anyway, that's why it's called the Marketing Mercenaries podcast. Anyway, and I hope that you enjoy it. My name's John Luck. Today I'm going to be covering quite a big issue. So this is the relationships between external agencies and in-house marketing teams. So I've worked on both sides, and I've seen just a number of very poor relationships and breakdowns in communication, and it's a shame because you see talented people on both sides, but because they don't get the communications right, and the relationship, it seems to go off at, it's somehow they start off and they're all united on the goal, and then they sort of get further and further apart. And I hope that this can give people some tips to improve those relationships. So I've split it into 4 areas. Firstly, bad briefs, and obviously that's the place to start. If the brief's not right from the beginning, then you're never going to have a successful project. Secondly, poor planning, which is, I see it so often, a lack of planning. Thirdly, which is the main issue for most in-house teams, and that's poor performance. And then finally, bad reporting. So reporting for the sake of it, just no one understanding why that specific report has been produced, which is something that is so common. Agencies seem to supply this pile of reports to people, and then in-house teams look through it, and often you give it to senior stakeholders who, without fail, always pretend to have a really great grasp of the numbers. And as someone who often produces reports and provides data, I can say that most senior executives do not have a clue about the numbers. They just pretend they do. And that's the truth. They don't have a real understanding of the numbers and what they mean and how to use them. But they've got it in their head that they've got to tell everyone that they're numbers focused, which is fine because it's easy, because bigger number equals good and smaller number equals bad, and I'm glad that CEOs have been able to work that out. Right, I'm not going to be patronised anymore. Let's dive right into it. So bad briefs, that is, to start with, it's the responsibility of the in-house team. You need to say what you want. People have become, they're not clear about in saying what the purpose of the activity that you're briefing into the agency is. One time I looked at this big spreadsheet that had been given, not spreadsheet, so this big report that had been given, had lots of flow charts on it and diagrams, and then it had big number at the bottom saying this is what you're getting briefed, and I read it and I was like, what the hell do you want people to do with this? And in the end, the agency, they launched a whole new mini site, and I came in and I was like, why do we want a mini site? Let's get people to our normal website. And yeah, anyway, so less about that, but it's just, you need to be clear what is the purpose that you're trying to achieve, and you need to be clear from the outset that that's what I want you to be reporting back to me. I'll go into reporting a bit later, but the objective and then the way that you're reporting success of the campaign are inextricably linked, and so often there seems to be very little connection between the two. And I think it's often in briefs, in-house digital marketing teams feel like, some of them feel a little bit like they need to prove themselves to these agencies. They think of agencies as the experts in marketing, and that they need to somehow show that they know about marketing, so they write these really detailed briefs showing off their knowledge. Like, that is rubbish. You need to, when you're briefing an agency, you've employed them to be the expert, the expertise that you do not have in your team. So you need to completely let them have a free rein. You need to be in charge of the outcome. You say, I need this outcome, because you know your company. You will know your company way better than the agency, and say, this is what we need. Now, how is it best for you to deliver that? Because when marketers try to show off their in-house marketers try to show off their skills, they end up restricting what the agency can do. They're saying, we need to use these channels, we're going to use LinkedIn, we're going to use Twitter, and that really restricts what the agency can do. So if you're briefing a number of different agencies and you're giving them the channels, and then some of them you're giving them the budget as well, and then it's very difficult to choose between each of the agencies, because they're bringing back pretty much identical stuff, because you're dictating the channels and the budget. If you don't give them a budget, you just say, we need you to, what's the best method for achieving this goal? Then they'll come back with very different pitches based on the individual specialities of that specific agency. Because when you go to them and you say, I want to use this channel, they might not be an expert in it, and they won't say that to you. They'll just say, oh yeah, we'll do it. And then you'll basically be paying an agency that's, say, a PPC agency, and then you're paying them for paid social, which might not be something that they do. So that's not a good example. Most paid agencies do PPC, but anyway, that's beside the point. Let them come to you and suggest what they would do to solve your specific problem and get your outcome that you want to achieve. Right, so that's bad briefs from an in-house perspective. You know what you need to do, but as an agency, if you get a bad brief, you need to work with your client to improve the brief and to focus it on outcomes, because at the end of the day, you want to be measured. You want to be measured fairly on the success of your campaign. And if you're confident in the work that you're doing, you'll be able to deliver those outcomes that they want. So you need to work with them to make sure that they're actually getting what they've asked for. And I think it's a matter of integrity. Sometimes if you're not happy with the campaign that you're going to produce, then you need to walk away from it. Or you need to be held accountable for running a bad campaign. And it's simple as that. So you've got to make a choice as an agency, and I know that's a really hard one to make, but you've got to choose integrity over money sometimes, or money over integrity, but then you need to know that that's what's happened. And if someone comes to you and says, why have you run this awful campaign, you need to own it. You need to hold your hands up and say, we ran a terrible campaign. It is our fault, because it is. We took money over integrity. Anyway, sorry, that's enough about bad briefs. So we're going to poor planning. And this is something that when agencies provide a proposal for what they're going to do, often they have slides that say, here's the objectives, here's the channels, here's the creative we're going to do, here's the reports we're going to produce. And it all seems very separate from each other. Why aren't your objectives linked to your reports? This is what they've asked for, so that is what should be delivered. And in terms of creative and channels and your audience, like, you have an audience that you want to target, then you have the specific channel that you want to use, and they are connected, inextricably linked. You've got a group of people and you'll be able to target them through specific channels, and then you want to produce content that is absolutely right for them. So it needs to be linked together and not so separate. And as well, testing, like, I've been in so many campaigns where there is just not enough testing, and I'll be saying to them, what collateral has worked? Where's the plan here? Where's our testing? Different sorts of collateral, different wording, different designs, and it's just lacking in so many campaigns that have been run. So, it should be outlined from the very start in the planning stages what your strategy is to get to your specific audience. And then I'll move on to the next stage, which is poor performance. And this is something that I've got annoyed with agencies in the past, because they seem to have like set times for when they're going to make changes to a campaign. If you're running a digital campaign, the main advantage over digital is the flexibility that it gives you. You can run the campaigns, you can amend, you can pivot, you can change what you're doing at any time. So why are agencies reporting poor performance after 4 weeks and then saying, oh yeah, now for the next 4 weeks we're going to pivot? And it's like, well, why didn't you just feed back as you started seeing these trends that you wanted to change? Because then, even if you are reporting poor performance after a month, if you showed that you're trying to change and you're trying to experiment, that's far more acceptable for a client, because you've brought them along the journey with them. And sometimes I think this is, as an agency, you often have people that will be, there's a kind of culture around the agency, and there'll be like a big sigh when the customer rings up and they'll think, oh God, we're working for the, and I've worked in teams, support teams especially, when it's like this, and you need to stop whining about your customers so much. And I know it's frustrating, but it doesn't create a good environment, and it doesn't create good relationships for you, and it doesn't help you do your job at the end of the day. So yeah, you need to stop that. So anyway, that was we're talking about poor planning, poor performance actually, wasn't it? Yeah. Okay, so we got poor performance down, and we got willingness to change as an agency, and willingness to call things out as an in-house team, saying, what's going on with this? What are you trying? I think that's because if you've told this agency that they need to come up with the plan, then they're completely accountable for it. So the poor performance is on them. It's because if you've dictated to them, oh, we want a campaign via Twitter, and Twitter performs really badly, then you can't go to the agency and say, why are you doing it through Twitter? It's performed badly, because that was in the brief. If you've said to them, you need to choose the channels, and you need to produce the performance that I'm looking for, then they've got to be held accountable for it. And this is a far more healthy way of running your relationship, running your campaigns. And finally, the bad reporting. And as I was speaking before about linking, knowing what reports are going to be produced is a really vital part of your campaign, because normally it hasn't been discussed and it's just kind of cooked up by the agency. And often, like, I've worked on campaigns, and as it's gone along, they've developed different reports to, from the start of the campaign, and then reporting on different things. And I just think, why the hell are you doing that? That's, it's not good for consistency, and you shouldn't discuss. I mean, yeah. Well, why is the report being enhanced? You're supposed to be the expert in this area. So yeah, I mean, just reports should be simple. Has it achieved the purpose that was set out originally? Yeah, it's a simple question to answer. Anyway, so those are my 4 key takeaways from today. I hope that's helped a little bit, and I hope that can help you to write better briefs or improve the briefs that you receive as an agency. If you've got any questions, please, I'd love you to give me a comment. As I said, this is the Marketing Mercenaries podcast. My name's John Lack. Thanks so much for listening.